Oh,
okay.
Delightful.
Heck yeah.
So, hello everybody that I've been talking to for the last 15 minutes. Welcome to Keeping a Narrative in TTRPG podcast. If this is not the panel that you're looking for, too bad. They're going to lock the doors. You're trapped. As we mentioned before, my name is Alex Smith, and then my co-panelists.
I'm Philip D. Keating from Botch Podcast.
I'm Travis McElroy from the Adventure Zone.
And I'm Mike Crugnola from Adventure Incorporated, a legally distinct entity from Adventure Zone and Acquisitions Incorporated.
Not our child, even though it sounds like that.
Test results pending.
Yeah.
So this panel is supposed to be focused on how to maintain a narrative in TTRPG podcasts, which sounds more redundant than I intended it. Generally, when you're going to run a TTRPG game as a DM or as a player, you're going to have a lot of freedom at your tables. When you're playing in your kitchen, when you're playing at your LGS, you're going to have a certain amount of, oh, well, that narrative thread can kind of fall because we're really focused on this one, that you don't have the same kind of liberty when you're running a TTRPG podcast and you have an audience to contend with. There are a couple of different ways that you run your game that distinguish it from your average game. Now, if it is amenable to all of my panelists, I was going to have us do this in like sort of a linear narrative sense. Go figure. Where I wanted to start with how it's different in session 0, how it's different right before you start recording, how it's different during performance, and then how it's different after game.
Oh, so you looked at me, so I will start.
No pressure.
You know, the truth is I joked about it, but it's still something I'm really working on getting a handle on, because as you pointed out, that idea of like there will be threads introduced that then like it steers away from that. For me, that's really hard to deal with because I want answers to every question. And it's a DM mistake I made as well of that, like, especially running the game where I was like, I want to answer every question I propose because what if there's someone out there listening and now they're angry that they never figured out that thing and I've been that person. So what I've been trying to think about of late is going into session 0, establishing as much of the world and explanations and going over all of that stuff mechanically. And then as players, we record, we've gotten better now at being able to record once a week, where we used to, sometimes be separated out, and we've tried to do like big bulk recordings of like 4 episodes at a time, and then nothing for like 3 weeks, and then
you forget everything that happens.
You forget everything that happens, and so we do a lot of like recap for each other before we start recording, and sometimes even like having the freedom to say like, wait, hold on, I'm so lost. What is happening right now? Because it is a lot to maintain when you're thinking about things like, are my levels good, and am I close enough to the microphone, and all of that stuff, while also trying to play the game. And we're like in 4 different locations when we do Adventure Zone. So I don't know, man.
No, it's funny that you say that because like when we do the previously on Botch, that's when I remember everything that we did the week before.
It's just a bunch of recap for you.
It literally is. Like, but for us, we normally, like I said earlier, we're starting a new season here at DragonCon, right? So for us behind the scenes, we're doing a lot of improv games to get our characters kind of set and ready, so that when we do hit the stage, there's not that awkwardness of trying to figure out how this character is going to interact with other characters and just putting in the prep work, because having it be, trying to figure out what my character is live on stage is not good for anybody and not entertaining.
Yeah.
So like we normally, for the last 3 weeks, we've done our recording nights have just been one-shots and improv games to kind of smooth out everybody's bumps so that when we do hit stage, we're already, loaded and ready to go out the cannon.
Yeah, that's something that we learned 2 years ago now. So Adventure Incorporated decided for our first campaign, we would do a 5-year arc. Because we're lunatics, and we didn't know what we were doing, right? We knew.
Wait, well, like real world time 5 years, or like in game 5 years?
Yeah,
but that's a long time.
Like that?
Yeah.
Who would ever
It's
make
really
that
easy just to
decision?
jump into a 5-year campaign.
Yeah,
So,
who would ever do that?
So we were fans of Lost, right? So to your point of like losing a narrative thread, that's fine. We thought, because our favorite show introduced so many more questions than it gave answers to, right? And it let us talk about that show for so many years after the fact. And so that was something that, like, deliberately we were okay with going into the first year. But what we didn't realize we needed to do was have chemistry with our characters ahead of time. And so to Phil's point, in our second campaign, we played 3 or 4 sessions that we even recorded and keep as, like, secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah, the practice episodes that we did for QPR will never see the light of day.
So ours might. We really like them.
I mean, that's patreon.com/Adventure Incorporated.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe our patrons will get them, but who knows? And so, like, we definitely, this time around, put a lot more thought into, okay, if I'm going to be playing a character for a long time, what is my character's biggest strength? But also, more importantly for the show, what is my character's biggest weakness? Because we want to provide our DM with as much, like, juice as they can possibly squeeze out of our characters, right? And so that was something.
It's a way to phrase it. Okay.
Tears, whatever that juice might happen to be, right? And so that was something that we really wanted to make sure we had in our session 0. And then we wanted to establish points of view of the world around them that were very strong and informed by their backstory, so that, like, as they grow throughout the show, they have somewhere to go to. We didn't want them to be perfect out of the box, but we also wanted to be cognizant of, like, we are putting this on for other people. And so, like, what do you play that is interesting, that connects with people?
Well, there's also a certain amount of, you want your characters to develop over the course of the narrative, even if you don't know exactly what direction that's going to go.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, though, because I ran into this, and once again, I'm just going to probably sit here for the rest of the time and be like, here's the thing I did wrong. Don't do this.
Good advice.
In Ether C, the character I created, I had, like, hinged it on he will develop. And I was like, because I had planned that, it was like, well, now I'm, like, searching for opportunities for the development.
Yeah.
And then you're just forcing it.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, is, like, so much of narrative and I think the difference between, like, playing with friends at home that I've done and playing in like, recorded settings for an audience is you don't have to worry about, is this engaging for other people? And so it's a lot easier to just be like, I'm interested in this scene that's happening right now and we're having fun, versus, like, is this a narrative? Is this a story? And so, like, we kind of took for granted, because with Balance we started and we didn't know what we were doing, and the chemistry was just there because we were starting off from the beginning. And then in both Amnesty and Graduation, the characters were meeting for the first time, so that chemistry. And so then Ether C was the first time where it's like, they have some kind of history together and we have not figured it out ahead of time. And it created, like, the chemistry never really completely clicked, because we didn't do, like, an actual structured session 0. We didn't do all of that. So story and character was always kind of competing, as it was like, well, why are they doing this? What's happening? Do they like that they're doing it? Where this is going? And so it is, I think, one of the very important things of this structured session 0 discussion, of literally just, like, asking questions like, and how does blank feel about blank? Why do they work together? All that stuff.
And that's
Forgive me. I'm actually really glad you said that, because I feel like the actual management of the narrative is a really strong balance between what the DM is sort of guiding you to, like, what you want the ultimate story to be, so it has this cohesion, with what develops organically and what naturally happens. So when you're trying to, like, plan too far, you get that lack of chemistry because everything feels very robotic. And then if you just try to wing it, you end up in terrible situations where your characters betray the entire party and join the villains.
But that's an important thing that we found out too late in our show, is that, like, every beginning of the season we have a meeting, and it's just like, my DM Dennis, I say, what is our plot points? Where do you see what is A and what's B? Where are we ending? And how, just so that I have a thought on how we're going to make our way through this maze to the end goal, because at the end of the day, like, we're trying to have a entertaining show for people, right? And if we're not having fun at the table, you're not having fun listening to it. And that's how you get 4 episodes of us playing golf, which was...
If it's fun, we had a whole episode of like someone learning to surf. It was one of our most fun episodes we've ever done.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, we have spent entire episodes shopping for khakis, and Snoopy ice cream makers. But like,
my DM won't give us a beach party episode.
What?
It's driving me nuts.
Have you earned it?
My wife had to run it. My wife had to run it for my birthday.
That's a nice birthday.
Right?
That's fun. But that is a thing that is different in like recording it for people that, once again, like so much of the stuff that we had in balance, we just kind of lucked into. It was a lot of like lightning in a bottle, beginner's luck kind of thing. And now we're realizing, because when you are playing at home, it is okay as a player to be surprised by the next story beat, and a character be surprised by the next story beat. But when you're playing the game together for an audience, you're more like a writer's room. Yeah. So then it's okay for the characters to be surprised, but sometimes you have to share the information with the players so that they're all building a story together. Because sometimes it's this feeling of like, I know you want me to do something, or like, I want you to do, like, we can't move forward until you do this one thing. And it's like, if we just all talked about what the general broad strokes, not like, I need you to open the door, but just like, and, I think on this one, we want to try to get to this place.
Yeah.
So it's like, so we all know, without saying like, I need you to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, but just so everyone's kind of on the same page. It's a different feeling, and it's a really hard balance to strike between that and everybody getting to make their own choices and be creative versus like that and, well, you said I needed to, so I guess that's what has to happen.
Yeah, and for us, that last season that we did was the zombie apocalypse, and we had to have a discussion because one of our players got too powerful. She was snorting protein powder for weeks, which gave...
Wait, hold on. As a character or as a player?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Dude,
so...
you'll see her walking around.
Yeah.
You'll know.
You'll know. But she had a base 25 strength.
Wait.
So it was like, okay, quick question.
I thought that capped at 20.
What do we do if she turns? Like, we have to have a plan in case she turns into a zombie because she's going to murder everybody. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to fight her? So, like, these are little conversations that happen behind the scenes so that, if we get into that situation in the future, we already kind of have a roadmap on what to do.
You had to have a party conversation for the Batman contingency plan with the Justice League.
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. Do you have any notes on this? Because I actually have a question I wanted to ask everybody, but I wanted you to be able to jump in before I did that.
I think for us, one of the best things about our table is that we have been performing and improvising together for, oh my God. When I say it, I sound so old, 15 years. And so, like, when we enter into a creative project together, it's like the group mind that you, like, wish you had with everything you did. Everyone's on the same page already. So, like, we actively want our DM to surprise us as players and characters. And so we've just given all the trust in those story beats to be able to react honestly in the moment as the characters. We're kind of like improv dorks about it, like in a real up our own butt UCB kind of way. And so like we like lean into that extra hard. But I do think it's cool to hear that there are other ways to do it if that isn't your bag, because you can do a TTRPG show a billion different ways, and depending on your group, they're going to work out differently and feel better or worse for you. So.
Because my player group, they do not like having things planned. They don't like you sitting down and being like, so here's kind of a narrative direction we're going to go. But one of the things that I will tell my players, if there's something that's important, like Travis mentioned, is I'll be like, hey guys, the vibe for this episode is going to be significantly more serious than like the goofy stuff. Like something important's going to happen, so like have that in your mindset, which is the compromise we reached from them saying, I want to know nothing, and me going, you have been at this same point for 4 episodes. Do you guys do any, like, right before recording sort of prep work, warm-ups, or any moment of, like, hey, guys, here's a thing that I kind of need you to keep in mind before episodes?
I mean, if it warrants it, like, I've been trying to do that more recently, where I will say, like, in this episode, I just have a lot of information, and then in the next episode, it's like open world. And so, like, if you have questions or whatever, this is the sit down and get the quest episode, and then this is the like do what you will episode. And then, especially, we just did this for Dust because it was like we had 4 episodes to do it, so it's very much like we recorded them all. We recorded 5 episodes in 2 days. Yeah. And so it was a lot of like, I could literally only plan so much. For episode, my notes for like episode 1 are like, okay, I've got my episode 2, I've got this one figured out. Episode 3, and then by episode 4, I was like, we're leaning forward. Let's go.
Yep.
And so there's a little bit of like, once I lay this out, I'm going to present to you basically what you need to do, and then you can figure out what to do in the next episode. And so, I mean, there's a little of it, but like as you said, the answer and the reason I always feel so imposter syndrome talking about stuff like this is because it's different for every group.
Right.
It's different every session. It's different whatever game system you're playing.
Yeah.
It's different for individual players. I mean, like, I know I as a player to like to like say like, oh, as soon as I get this option going, let's go. I remember playing doing Dimension 20 and doing Tiny Heist, and like Griffin and I are the kind of players who are like, we have something planned. And like there's a moment in an episode where Griffin like writes something down on a piece of paper and he just like lays it down as his like ready to action. And it's like, that's the kind of players Griffin and I are.
Sure.
And Dad and Justin are like, I just want to see what happens. I just want to go. Right. And so it's trying to find that balance.
Yeah.
And who's DMing and what emotions are we in that day? That's the other thing too, because we're playing as a family. So, we have collectively from the time Griffin was born, 35 years of doing stuff together. And so there will be days where it's just like, I'm tired and I'm not good at hiding that from you
For
guys.
your family, yeah.
Yeah, and that energy is felt through the shows. I mean, there was many episodes where I go to the table angry, and it really does show. So, like, I've now had a before I go live, decompression by myself, 4 bush lights, and a Wawa hoagie just to make sure that I'm mentally set to go on. But yeah, for Botched, we're all chaotic stupid. Dennis does have a plan, but like it's really us as a group of idiots, baby day outing, Mr. Magooing our way through traps and whatnot. And
Poor Dennis.
What? Yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing about Botched is like we go through characters as their paper. Like we had maybe 30 some character deaths in this season.
Wow.
And we just don't care, and it shows. But that 10 minutes before I go live with those bush lights and that Wawa hoagie is so important. But no, really, like decompression and like self-medication.
Nope.
Take 2.
Not that one.
Self-care?
There it is.
There it is.
Self-medication.
No, you actually say that. I have a ritual where I watch, and this is outing myself a little bit more than I want to, YouTube animatics. Like,
Okay.
well, they'll do animatics of like, or like AMVs. I'll just watch them for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, good, I'm in the zone.
But it's true because like I'll come home from a terrible day at work, and like I have to get that bad energy out, and I don't want to get it out on my friends who I'm making a show with. So like decompressing for like 20 minutes alone in my room, with the white noise machine playing is exactly what I need to kind of get myself re-leveled so that I'm ready to be an idiot in front of people.
Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, I'm so sorry. I am the UCB improv nerd again. We need, as a group, we come together and just do bits before the show, which like. It's our version of warm-up games, right? Because we're not in the same place, so we can't do Zip Zap Zop, and we refuse to because half our cast hates it and the other half loves that they hate it, and so we it's really hard.
You know who actually loves those bits? Our significant others. Like working new characters and bits out with my partner. She loves it.
I don't believe you.
So I'm told.
So convincing.
So, Devin, real quick to bring you in.
Hey, everybody, I'm Devan Henderson. I'm one of the co-DMs of D4. But yes.
So the thing that we're jumping in on is, do you have any, like, so there's a certain amount of preparation that you have to do before you do recording that's a little bit different than you do for your average
Yes.
average bear game. Do you have any, like, pre-recording things that you do, like, to get yourself into the zone, or to sort of bring your entire table to be like, hey, here's sort of what the plan is, here's sort of what the vibe is, like, what's your level of planning?
Yeah, so every week, there's a couple of things. Every week we ask our players, hey, what is your character's headspace? What are their goals? What do you want to do as a player this next coming week? That helps us write because that gives us an idea about what their interests are. So, of course, we're going to write for them instead of just being like, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm the DM. You have to do what I say. Like, no, you control the story. But before the game, we all have, we joke about the past week because we only really get to see each other that, once a week. In the studio, and we joke, we have fun. They try and make us laugh and break character right before the cameras roll. And we kind of give a small breakdown of like, hey, this is kind of the things that we have prepared for you that you sent in. If there's anything else, spur of the moment, please hit us with it. We'll, shoot from the hip. But that's really the biggest boon for us as writers and getting into the headspace is just knowing what our players want, writing for that, having fun as friends right before the game. We also have playlists. Like all of our character players have playlists for their characters that they listen to on the way to the studio. They kind of get them in the headspace. And if it's a really heavy narrative at the time, then they'll listen to more of the songs that pertain to that feeling, or if it's lighter, they'll listen to the ones that give them more happy, jovial tune to kind of just get them in the mood, the headspace for all of that. But as for the DMs, I mean, it's like going into work, honestly. I show up, I clock in, I set up the studio, and I'm like, okay, I'm here to do this. Let's go. We also do fun ad reads. This past one, I did the new Pocky One Chip Challenge, and that erased everything that I could be like blocking myself as an entertainer, and just went, okay, here I am. My mouth is on fire, and I have to do an ad read now.
Mistake. Not that we haven't all made them.
Yeah.
But it's easy to look at. It's like chugging a big glass of water right before like a 3-hour session, and you're like, I'm gonna have to take a couple breaks here, guys. I planned poorly.
This can no way
breaks
go
this
wrong.
session.
Yeah. It's interesting because listening to it. So I have ADHD, and as a player, one of the things I have to be like, I try to be careful about, and I quite often fail at, is I think about it the same as like if you're someone who walks really quickly compared to other people, and you're walking with like 3 other people, and you're walking faster than them, it's like, well, I need to slow it down a bit. I have to, and so I will approach things and be like, okay, everyone's gonna like hit it as hard as me and try to talk as much as me, and like everyone wants to answer the questions as much as I do, and it's like, that's not true, and you're interrupting everyone, and you're talking so much, and then that also translates. I've run into that same issue like as a DM, where I'm like, okay, I need to prepare as if I'm the player, and this is what I would want to do. Because hyperfixation, you get in there and you start thinking about something too much, and you think about like, this is going to be such a cool moment, and do that, and it's like, oh no, we're not building towards that moment at all.
You chew the bone to a toothpick.
I have to let go of so much of that
Because all those hours of prep.
Yeah, right. But and the problem is like sometimes it's not sometimes it's not like I wrote. It's just like the idea popped into my head, and my brain latched onto it as that is the thing that's going to make this episode. And it's like, that's not true. That like didn't need to happen. It was just the way like my brain hyperfixated on that thing as being the thing I wanted to do. And it's been like, I think everybody has something like this their whole life, that it's just like, but I wanted to go here for dinner. And it's like, yeah, but I didn't. Like, but I'd convinced myself that was the one thing that would make me happy today. And like trying to like let that go. It's something I struggle with 38 years and going. But like that impacts that narrative in that sometimes I'm holding on so tightly to a thread, right, that I miss 3 or 4 other threads that would have been way better.
Yeah.
And it also is, once again, you play at a table with different people with different personalities and different ways of thinking about something and different. So the assumption of everyone is thinking about this moment the same way I am is so flawed.
Yeah.
And like that can really get you in trouble when you're thinking like, okay, well, why would they do that? That person did that thing. That's not what I would have done. So they must be trying to ruin the thing I want to do. And it's just like, no, you're thinking that way because you think that way. They're thinking about their own stuff their own way. And you have to work harder to like expand it out. Because once again, when you're playing like just a group of friends at home playing that thing, right? Yeah, as long as everyone's having a good time, there is no like, well, yeah, Todd talked more than Susan did, but Susan and Todd talked as much as they wanted to, and that's what matters. Versus when you're like collaboratively making something together and telling a story together, like you want to make sure everyone gets a hand on the ball equally so that the story feels split equally between the things. And it's really hard when you're like me and not good at it. I'm sure for some people they're like, but it's super easy. Why don't you just do it? And I'm like, I wish I could.
Well, and to your point of like that one person who doesn't want the ball all the time, right? We have a player on our show Mikey, who plays Scarpin, a turtle, half zombie turtle. And he
talks very slow then, huh?
and like he would prefer to be watching most things. You know, he's very much a like, oh, let me see what happens. And then he'll say the thing that's like the 3-pointer at the buzzer, like every time. Everything he says is gold. And so after a recording, I'll be like, dude, did you just have these?
Well, yeah, he lets the children run around,
right?
right?
Exactly.
And then, you know, just
Like,
at the end.
Steph Curry is it, but like, whereas I think some of us are like, oh, we're going to Kobe this, right? To extend my sports metaphor one more step here.
Please don't
You
go too
love
much
sport.
far. I can't hold on too much more.
I was about to say,
It's slipping through my fingers.
you're
Sports
losing
ball.
me. You're
All
losing
right,
me so
so
fast.
like, rather than shooting 100 shots and hitting 20.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
Travis McElroy way. Okay, good. Go on.
Yeah.
20, though, is flattering, if I'm being honest.
Instead, Mikey shoots 6 and hits 10. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's not even possible.
I mean, that's how my dad is. Like,
Oh my God,
it's
Clint is so good
yeah,
at it.
and the thing is I think we probably edited it out. There's a lot of like me and Justin when like it's the three of us together going like, what do you think, Dad? Because like he'll just sit there and he's just having fun watching his sons play the game, and we're like, hey, come on in here.
Mikey's
Get on
kind
in
of our
here, man.
dad, so that kind of fits,
Yeah.
He's the one who's taking care of us, shepherding us
Yeah,
along.
This
Jenna-
got so wholesome so quickly.
I love that we all have like the person that actually moves the narrative for us. It's like all the other idiots run around. Like that's Jenna for us, right? Tristan, Steve, and myself will start doing crazy weird things and like capturing pigeons and making pets and whatnot. And Jenna's like, all right, you guys are good. You had your playtime. Good. I'm gonna move the story forward for everybody.
That's Steph for
Yeah,
our
yeah.
show. Mikey is one of us,
He's
just
okay.
quiet.
Quietly.
That's why it's fun because like balance once again like balance was such beginner's luck in lining up because like we all just kind of accepted the way we wanted to play as character traits of the character. So like Magnus Rushes In comes from like if I as a player if I see a door, first thing I'm gonna do is try to open it.
Missile
right?
okay.
Anything
Oh,
where it's like
okay.
I'm checking for traps or I'm like no, and then I'll find out what happens. And Justin's like, I'm not going in there. That's it. Like I know what you want me to do. There's no reason for me to do that. And Dad was like, I just want to make sure everyone's I'm just happy to be here. Was like is Dad's whole thing. And I've heard him say in interviews a lot of time where he'll just sit there and like let the three of us talk, and then he'll like, I don't know, I'm just happy I get to do it. And we're like, no, Clint.
This is so wholesome.
Yeah, that's why it was so like I had to shift gears kind of when DMing graduation, and I learned so much from the many mistakes I made. But one of them was like Griffin, Justin, and Dad. None of them play like it. None of them have the impulse control issues that I do. So I'd be like, "Here's a door," and they'd be like, let's contemplate this door for a while. And I'm like, "Oh no!"
yeah.
And then you have to like think of something that makes
Right.
the door
And they're like, I look for
noticeable
traps,
because
and I'm like, "There's no traps. There's a door.
you
Go
have,
out."
you have to make something
your own
up so that
dorm
there's a
room.
reason
Just
we
go
spent
in.
20
It's kind of
minutes on
open.
it.
It's kind of open already. Oh,
Yeah.
it swings all the way
there's
open.
a strong breeze.
Oh, we struggle with door puzzles so long.
This makes me feel better about my own players, so thank you guys. So
That is also, it doesn't help that as a family dynamic, there will be times where it's like, I see exactly what you want me to do. I'm not going to do that, though, because I'm your brother. Ha ha ha.
Rude.
I try that with my DM, and then he takes my legs.
So we've already sort of touched on it, but so we've gone into what we sort of do during the game. So is there any like during after game stuff that you guys think really really distinguishes how you guys play your games outside of what your home games would be like? So for example, after sessions for Quid Pro Roll wrap up, we have a conversation where we do our like highlights and our hopes, where it's like, hey, this was like the best moment of the game for me. I really liked that. Here's kind of what I want more of going forward, what I would personally like. And it's sort of like our way to check in with each other so that we know next session where we want to go.
That's really good. I'm stealing it.
Please do. Sure.
Copyright you.
Yeah, that's totally my idea,
Borrowed
not something
heavily.
that I stole from someone else. But is there anything that you guys do that's sort of either during or post app that you guys feel is sort of unique to running in a TTRPG? Or more notably, a TTRPG medium show?
I mean, so for us, it's like because of whoever's DMing, it used to be whoever was DMing was also the editor, and now we were with a editor named Rachel Jacobs, who's great, and so there's a lot of like listening to cuts of it over and over and over again to make sure like narratively it makes sense still, because sometimes you'll have a conversation and stop to like check something or do something or whatever, or there's like in the middle of a thing the dogs start barking and you edit that out, and it's like, did we finish that thought? Did we explain the beat? So as the DM, you get to go back over the stuff talked about, which is wildly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if I was gonna like start a full campaign at home with friends, I would set up a webcam or something and record it. So at the very least, as a DM, you can go back and review like the choices everybody made. Because I also, when you're recording a podcast, it's really hard pacing wise to stop and write everything down, because like you want to keep it going, you want to keep the pace up because you're making a story for people. And so having the recording to go back over and listen to and check and see like, well, who was that guy? Who was that thing? And like, we're lucky too, because people like fill out wikis for us. And the number of times, especially if it's like, well, we haven't visited that thing since the last one shot we did of it going back and be like, what? Okay, so what was it? Oh, there it is. Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
it's very
fan
helpful.
community.
Yeah.
It's a great cheat sheet.
If any wiki editors are out here, adventureinkpod.com could use your help.
Yeah, it's so helpful. The way D4 works is, well, we're co-DM, so we have to be on the same wavelength, and I could go on forever about how to co-DM, but not going to do that. That's not what this panel's about. But because we have day jobs, we work in the film industry, a lot of the time it just comes down to, we have Google Docs for every session that we do, and we'll talk, we're roommates, and we get to throw things at the wall, see what sticks, and then find out what narrative works best. But I'll write and he'll write on the Google Docs, and we have all of what the players wanted to do, and then like scenes for that and bullet points for what we think might happen, or what the NPCs are feeling and their goals are, so we can play them respectfully. And then also we have Google Docs for all of the NPCs. We decided to run a game in Waterdeep. I don't know if you know what that's like, but it's like running a game in New York City and everybody wants to meet every NPC ever.
Yep.
It's a nightmare. But as you were saying, like the wiki thing is really nice, but also in the middle of the game, if players are like, hey, I want to go to that art dealer that we saw in 100 episodes ago, and we're like, okay, hold on. And I know the name of the place they went to, and I'll be like, oh, yeah. It was a really tubby tabaxi that sells art and furniture and things like that, and we know who it is. And it's so easy to find using Google Docs. Google Docs are your friend. Please use them.
I mean, Dennis does all of our editing, and after editing, your audio for hours, you kind of just drone out. So what we've always done since day one is that I'm his second set of ears. Once he is done and he sends it over to me, I'll listen to it maybe twice to just make sure that the edit is good, that the narrative, is going the way that he wants it, and if there is any quick edits that we need to make right at the end. And then post shows, positive, reinforcement for my other players. if somebody does something that's really good and really is killing me, like it's so, I want to just let them know because everybody needs positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's
huge.
Especially in the making things for an audience, like for other people to consume kind of thing. It helps. Like the four of us know each other's anxieties, what they are, how they manifest, and what that is. And so usually in like 7 days between recordings, there's a lot of text of like, I just want to say, I was thinking about that one moment. That was so cool. You did such a great job. And just a lot of that because especially like if you go a long time without releasing something and you're like recording ahead of time or whatever, you're either going into a vacuum or like it's interesting because like Justin and Griffin get really nervous before we do a thing, and Dad and I feel really nervous after we do that. Oh, just like maybe that was all bad and everything I did was bad and I'm bad. And so there's a lot of that, but then coupled with then saying like, what I'd love to do more of because I liked that thing. Let's follow that up and finding ways to like still give not criticism but like direction, give notes.
Of course. And the four the four other co-hosts I'll have on my show, man, they are my best friends. Like I talk to them more than I talk to my own family, and it's great to have just a strong relationship with the people that I want to create with. This isn't the first cast that we've had. We've had multiple people come in and out of the table, and for the first time, once we brought Steve on, it felt right? When you just know that your chemistry is perfect, it's this aura that is just, God, you want to bottle it and give it to everybody.
It's so good.
And I trust them with every decision, with everything, right? And there's that trust that needs to be there. Like you said before, everybody knows, okay, yeah, Phil has depression, Chonky has eating issues, and Steve is just hella cute. And it's those things that we all
could be
know.
Such big pressure. Griffin's hella cute too.
Yeah.
And it weighs on. But I always like, because like it's also about knowing. So for example, I don't think I could ever play we've been in a long-term romantic relationship with anyone on the Adventure Zone. Not because they're my family, though that's an element for sure, but more just like chemistry-wise, that's not the chemistry we have. But I've gotten to do twice now, be in a married couple with Christina Ariel, and they're like playing married characters with her. The first time I was husband, she was wife. The second time she was husband and I was wife. And we just like, it clicks well, and it's funny, and it's very much like, not just we're married, but we've been married for like 15 years. And it's like, there's something about that chemistry that just works really well for us.
Sure.
And like, if anyone is ever like, yeah, we'd love to have you guest, and is there someone you want to guest with? They're like, yes, I do. It's Christina Ariel, and we'll be playing married people. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Checking in with the players, we call it after the catch. And we all tell each other, oh, this was amazing and stuff like that. But we'll also message our players privately and be like, hey, just want to check in because there's a lot of bleed in our games. Bleed is very real. Bleed is when your character and you kind of become one. The emotions are so real. The immersion is so real that it's your headspace kind of forgets what real world is in the sense that you just feel your character's emotions so much that their sadness becomes your sadness, their happiness becomes your happiness. And sometimes you just need to find relief out of that headspace back into who you actually are. And we can have a whole panel about bleed as well, because that's a very important thing about games.
It goes both ways, right? Because people will talk about, playing RPGs is such a great way to like find catharsis and like touch on things. It's like, yeah, absolutely.
And
the other way to do
yes.
Ziggy Stardust would disagree.
But we check in with them, make sure that everything's good, and also be like, hey, we did that thing that you wanted to do. Was it satisfactory? Did you like it? Is there something you want to focus on differently, or is there something you didn't like so that we know not to do that again?
And I have the benefit of living with my DM and my co-creator. So I'm very open and honest with him because it's better for the show. So if like we get through a session and it was a heckin' good time, I'll let him know because like he needs to know like that he's doing a good job. But on the flip side of that, if it's a bad night and I don't like, or we don't like where the story's going, I gotta let him know too, so that like he can kind of rewrite and shift where he wants the story to go. But if there's not that open communication, like you can't expect people to read your minds on your shows, especially if you're doing it through Zoom, where you don't have that face-to-face.
Yeah.
You know,
It's very different recording remotely
Yeah,
than it
we-
was when we were in the studio.
yeah.
And
we had to like build out that space post show to have those decompression moments, especially like at the end of our first arc. Things like we started light and silly and goofy. Like my character had been. He had a perfect childhood. He was that D&D character, that like the one that nobody ever like plays because orphans are cool or whatever. Like,
So cool.
You heard it here first, folks. Orphans are
Orphans
cool.
are so they're so lucky. They've really got it all.
I mean, adventurers, right? Like, to adventure, something bad must have happened, right?
Yeah.
It's like kind of the idea or whatever. And so, like, I thought, what if?
I wish I had demons.
What if he didn't, right? And then my like parents ended up dying in the show. Spoilers, but like for first season, and so like that hit really deep
Yeah.
in a way I wasn't expecting. Having gone through the loss of a parent, I was like, oh God, I'm doing this on for other people to hear. And so like we had to introduce that post session like ramp down into reality again, and it's changed so much about the way we play. I feel so much more open in the game because I know there's that safe like pillow to catch me afterward.
There-
And so yeah, just really,
There was one episode of Balance where like we finished recording and like I walked in the living room and my wife was like, "How'd it go?" And I was like, I feel bad. Like,
Yeah.
I feel bad. And like after a while, like I think Justin texted the group and was like, I don't like the way that story went. And I was like, yeah, I don't like that either. And I was like, yeah, I wasn't comfortable. And Griffin was like, do you guys want to redo it? And we're like,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yep.
absolutely do. And like we went back and recorded the second half of that episode just because it was like the way we handled it and the way like it went interacting with these, just the way that the story resolved, like it makes me
Yeah.
feel bad.
Yeah,
Because like we did not make the right choice. And it was
Sure.
just like that. That can't be what we put out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've scrapped episodes before because
Yeah.
of that same reason. Because it's we all just like you said, feel kind of crusty leaving it.
Yeah,
and,
and
you know,
not like, oh man, that went dark or whatever, but just
yeah,
like,
you just
oh,
it's
like-
Icky.
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like so like scrapping it and redoing it. Yes, you have lost time, but in the end, like the overarching is so worth it.
and it's not cheating.
It's-
Like that's the other
no.
thing is like, whenever I say that, like there have been people who are like, but that's not what you're supposed to do in the game. It's like, well, that's where I say
That's the
it's different from
between-
playing the game and a
yes,
writer's
exactly,
room.
yes.
Is sometimes you finish the script and you're like, that can't be what we filmed.
Yeah.
Like that
No,
we
this
like we
needs to be
did not.
punched up.
Yeah, we didn't handle that character death well, or this relationship that we started between these two characters doesn't make sense, or like the way that this fight plays out on screen, it's not healthy or it's not right or whatever, and that's different from like just playing at home and well, the choices we made are the choices we made versus like
100%,
we
yeah.
weren't gentle.
Must
with
be-
You
it.
can also do that in your home games. I want to
Yes.
let DMs
Yes.
know
Yeah.
you don't have to commit to those things if all of you hate it.
Yeah,
But we had a situation where we had a paladin who was about to become an oath breaker, and so we all took a break from the table and we discussed: is this what we want to do?
yeah.
Because that's a huge decision, especially for a character to be like, you know what, everything that I've built around this character is drastically about to change.
Yeah.
And how is it going to change the dynamic of the party? And how is it, you know, what's your character is going to have to die for him to go through this path? And it was a 20 to 40-minute conversation that we had to really just nail out everything before we can then go back to the table and hit record. Did we make the right decision? Heck yeah, we did. But it was also the paladin's decision, right?
Yeah.
It's his character. He's got to.
And not just like momentum based and like
Correct.
we're in the moment. What are we gonna do?
What are we going to
can't
do?
stop it now.
No. So it worked out in the end because his character got hecka sweet after that. But I had to forfeit, you know, a character that I fell in love with, so that his story could move on in a different path. And it was so dope to see.
What's really interesting, I've been thinking about it heading into today, but in the word choice of narrative versus story, because like it's a different thing, right? Because that's the thing is like the story was building that way.
Yep.
But then you have to pause and say, but is this the narrative? Is this like it's like everything to get, because a story is like a storyline goes this way, right? And then a narrative is like everything we've woven together, every feeling about the character, every like thing we're trying to convey to the audience, the like meaning of these things, all of that stuff is a much bigger thing than just like a storyline. It's like all of that stuff together, the narrative, you know?
So I want to like pop that because that is like the best point that I have to say that we need to move to questions.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's like the best like period at the end of the sentence sentiment we could have had for that. So we're going to open the floor to questions for the next 10 minutes or so I think we have. If anybody would like to ask any questions, please indicate with your hands.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Yes.
we don't have a microphone. So.
All I was going to say about all of that is it must be real nice to pre-record because we're a live show.
A second mistake.
Never.
I'll forfeit my mic.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
Why don't you come up? Please.
I wanted to ask, what are times, other than what Travis mentioned, during your stories where you felt that the story was going in a direction that either you weren't comfortable with, that you didn't think was like best for you or best for the narrative, and you had to, as DMs, be like, actually, we need to go left because there's nothing on the right except for a spike pit, and I really don't want you walking in that.
So one of the things that happens with QPR is thing number one, we have a practice where if anybody is concerned, like something happens that is triggering, upsetting, or really hitting a point that nobody wants to do, you throw up your arms like this and the game stops, we rewind, and then we start again without whatever just triggered that moment. And it's no questions asked, nothing, you just stop, rewind, continue on. When it comes to overall narrative, I am fortunate with my players that they have never put themselves in a place where I'm like, what are you doing? No. Like, but there's also, as a DM, you also have a responsibility to make sure that you are constructing things in a way that they do not just walk into a trap. You have to organize the game and what their options are in such a way that they don't have the ability to just wreck their day.
Yeah, and that trap can be literal spike pit or, the narrative trap, right? Of like, this is now heading in a direction that we don't want it to.
I'd say descriptive foreshadowing and narrative foreshadowing, both. Like descriptive for the trap, like you're going down a hallway, you see previously triggered traps from other adventurers that may have gone down this way to let them know, like, oh, maybe I should be mindful of traps, or hey, this is the traps that we might come across. And the narrative would be so they're coming up against a beholder. They're like level 5, right? There's no way they should fight that thing. They walk into the room, you have the beholder kill an underling right in front of them, just disintegrate them. Boom. That automatically sets the tone and the narrative for like, hey, maybe this is a talk it out type of situation and not a fight it out situation.
Yeah, our DM will do things like that for us, where he'll put us in a situation where, depending on the choices that we as a group make, we could all die, right? And unlike Botched, that's a problem for our show. Again, 5-year narrative of the same characters the first time around. This time, I think we're tracking a 2. And so, like, we are doing our best to keep these folks alive. And so he'll throw up a sign every once in a while through that narrative description of, like, this is getting worse for you.
Yeah.
And the worse is going to get worse.
How many red flags can I throw up?
Well, and as improvisers, right, we see, oh, let's make it worse. Like, let's
push the red button.
There, right? Like,
does a 23 hit? No. Oh,
yeah, exactly. And then all of
Okay.
a sudden it's like, oh, all right, I see what's happening now. Now we have to make that narrative choice of running away. And what does that change about the story that you were trying to tell?
Yeah.
Now that we're cowards, right?
I also think it's interesting because I think that there's a difference between we made a choice and we had bad outcomes versus, oh, I misunderstood the thing you
Sure.
explained earlier, and I did. Like, sometimes you'll just hear it in someone's voice, they're like, oh, okay. And you're like, wait, hold on, what?
Yeah.
What did you think it was? And they're like, well, I thought you said that the door was, like, behind them, and so I was trying, and you're like, okay, great, let's run it back and, like, do that
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing is, like, to expect that they caught every word, especially for us because we don't have miniatures,
Yeah.
we don't have a board laid out. It's all
Yeah, we
Yeah.
chop and
Fine.
screw
Yep.
so
We
Yeah.
also
much.
don't
Like,
get maps.
Yeah, so
Oh,
that
we
so that
custom make
idea of
all of
like
ours.
having the freedom to say like I misunderstood like the layout, and so I ran over here to do this thing.
This entire 5-minute
Right.
chunk out,
Exactly.
they'll
Absolutely.
never know.
But Dennis will also give us good context clues, like, "Hey, don't do this, or you will be punished for your actions." Like in the most recent season, we in the post-apocalyptic world found a Dollar General that was still up and running. And as we went in, he's like, "Yeah, you notice that there's cameras everywhere, and the sign is posted: shoplifters will be prosecuted." Did it stop us from trying to rob it? No, it didn't.
He's a general.
yeah.
It's in the title.
And he, told us, as the shop clerk, oh, yes, you are on camera. We do expect you to pay. So just when you're ready, let me know. And we just didn't have money, and we wanted Snickers bars. And so, yes,
all been
even though
there.
he gave us all these signs, we ran through all of them, and we were punished for it.
Yeah, I would also say that character death is not always the punishment you can give players.
I know. He takes limbs and eyes and hands and all of it.
Favorite NPCs like
Yeah, emotional turmoil is
yeah,
my,
they
my
spoke-
dagger's
they-
choice.
Ooh.
they spoke poorly to Manchun, and Manchun killed one of their best friends right in front of them.
For Dennis, he's gotten on this kick that his main punishment will be taking your pet's life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
see,
it
that's a red
sucks.
flag for me. Like literally, I can't play that. I wouldn't play that. game.
That would be a throw up the X for me
that's
kind of
it.
moment.
You can't do that. I would rather you kill my entire party.
I agree. And that's how we lost Mayor Cliff. It sucks. I mean, he was the best possum mayor you could ask for. Tick free since 2003. But you know what? It's what he's been doing.
There's a question over here.
Oh, please.
Bless you, Phil.
He didn't.
So, to borrow a term from the Bonus XP podcast, I am very comfortable in my home games, giving players bus tickets and having them get on the plot bus. And I see that happen in actual play shows all the time, and then I see audience response saying, "Oh, that was railroad." I'm like, no, it's the plot bus. They just got on the plot bus. And so how do you balance getting on the plot bus without making it feel like it's forced to the audience?
Great question.
question.
So for D4, we always like to say we don't put you on the tracks, but we keep the train in earshot. So we gave them a big sandbox to play with. But the thing is that we'll focus on the toys that they want to play with in the sandbox, but that doesn't mean that the other toys stop evolving or changing. So when they go investigate that thing that the toy has changed, and they're like, "Oh no, why is this?" Because the plot's moving forward. And we'll also try and make all of the narratives have just a tiny inkling of the main plot instead of having 8 billion plots and being like, okay, I guess we're changing the story now. It's like, no, the world works in the sense that if one major event is happening, it kind of like trickles into all of the other things that are happening. So why would that not happen in the fantasy world as well? So yeah, keeping the train in earshot, because I mean we're all telling a story together, and it's not being on a railroad if the players still have choices and their choices shape the narrative, and their narratives and their choices have consequences.
And I think it's different with a show, right? Like you enter into a show knowing you're making a show, knowing that the choices that you're going to make in the show are for the show.
Yeah.
And so it's...
You don't just make
We're-
the decisions
we
that
all
your
built
character
this train
would find
together.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. Like we,
In a
we're
home game,
all
you-
laying these
Yeah,
tracks.
in a home game, you could have 3 sessions in a row. That's all about them like throwing darts in a tavern and
Right.
drinking and everything. Yeah, it's great because they're having fun doing it, and that's what they want to do. As an audience member, I listen to that and be like, nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
and I find the concept of railroad, like the thing is like by that definition, yeah, like on Adventure Zone we do, because one, everybody on the show is comfortable with that, right?
Right.
When it's
We're
time
all
to move,
working toward the
when
same
it's
goal.
time to move forward, never once has any one of us complained to any DM and be like, I don't feel like I'm getting like, we're all, no pun intended, on board, and so like that idea of like we play the game differently
Right.
than someone else might, or that we might if we weren't recording the thing. and it's always interesting to me, though also completely understandable.
Yeah.
Right. When somebody compares and contrasts any podcast or web series or video thing of like that's not how we do it
Right.
at home, and it's like
Of course.
I absolutely understand. You are
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
are right. And like we said a
That's
lot,
the point.
like we made the decision from the first episode before we ever recorded Balance. Like we're not going to worry about casting times or like spell ingredients or anything like that because
Yeah.
we don't want to.
No.
We don't think that's fun for us.
We
And
don't
that-
even use the rule book.
Right.
We didn't know there were those things when we started playing.
And but I also see where that might be for someone like that is a turnoff for me. I don't like that they do that. I can't listen to that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I totally get. I absolutely understand that because it is a different way of playing. And if you are someone who's like, I want to see people who play the way that I play, and I want the experience of feeling like I'm watching
At the table.
My
friends play
table,
the
yeah,
same
yeah.
way I am, then I totally understand it. It's just that like every DM and every player and every table, every session is different depending on what they want. And so I don't know. I understand railroading if it is an issue of
If the players
the
don't have a
player
choice.
doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The player doesn't like it.
Yeah, I would feel very uncomfortable to hear that episode.
Right.
Right? Like, if there were a character or a player who was like audibly not enjoying the direction that the DM was pushing.
Yeah,
that in.
okay. Yeah, I do that, I guess.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah.
So
alright.
that is going to bring us, we do have 5 minutes left. I think we have time for like one lightning round question.
Okay.
Lightning round question.
Uh-oh.
No pressure.
I don't think you can answer this in a lightning round.
Sure, we can.
All right. So, as content creators who have to put out content regularly, how, and this is mainly for Travis, but also for the rest of you, because I too have ADHD.
Oh,
How do you make yourself create all the time and commit to it and actually get there for your episodes?
It's my hyperfixation.
yeah.
No, I'm not joking. I appreciate you laughing. I'm not kidding. It is literally my hyperfixation.
It's like one area that I'm able to discipline. Like it's kind of at a certain point I was like, listen, I'm not going to be able to be good at stuff all the time. So we've been doing this, recording things for like 13 years. And man, there are times we just had a session not too long ago where it went a little longer than I was expecting. And for the last like 20 minutes, I was struggling to just be present and be doing it and be there. And at that point, I was like, I'm going to let go of feeling bad about it and let other people talk more. So maybe I should go into it like that all the time. I don't know.
Yeah, I lean into the hyperfixation too. Like for me, it has to be the only thing I do. But I know my wife, who is also ADHD, needs to be doing other things in addition to playing the game, because that's how her brain works, right? She is watching or she's putting together notes for her other show while she's playing in D&D, right? She's building out a guest list for Protest Too Much, a Shakespeare podcast that if you like, you should
Shameless.
listen
You're
to.
shameless.
Oh, absolutely.
I would say, I don't have ADHD, but my co-DM does. And so he gets to hyperfixate on, I like to give him the encounters to come up with because he likes doing those numbers and things like that. He's really good at it. But for me, I'm an artist, and my entire life I've been training myself to not think that anything I create is good enough. So I have to constantly work on it for my own satisfaction, in the sense that I'll make something, I'll be like, oh, but what if it was just a little bit better because of this? What if it was a little bit better because of this? So I have the hyperfixation, but it's because I'm an artist and I need my art to be perfection because imposter syndrome is real, and I don't think that anything I create is good enough.
Nothing. Everything that I've created is garbage.
Every creator has imposter syndrome.
I tried to
Yeah.
pitch a panel this year here that says how to hate yourself better, which was about getting over your stuff does not suck. It's your own demon in your brain telling you that. As a creator with serious depression, this is a weekly thing and a schedule that I can count on to, no matter how dark and deep I'm in the hole right now, I have that little bit of light every Tuesday. And it literally keeps me going. And having that routine of like, hey, Monday is when the episode comes out, Tuesday is when we record, and Thursday is when I get my social media done. Saturday is when Dennis gets me that gets me the episode. Structure. So like, I know we got no time left, but it's really that chasing the dragon of that carrot at the end of the stick.
That's different.
No, it's not. You think that? It's just the routine. I need it in my life.
It also, real quick, set yourself up for success. That's what we have done. Where like we used to record in the evenings, and then we realized like by that point, our brains are completely dispersed. So now we record in the mornings. We used to record on this day, and moved to do this day. We used to do this, now we do that, right? And so like figuring out what works best for you and shifting that around. And also, this is completely serious and sounds like a joke. If I start to feel dispersed, I take my socks off. And there's something about that change, that physical change, the sensory change, that's like, I'm free and I feel better. I don't know.
And it's okay
You
not
learned
to
that
put
from
out
Die
content.
Hard.
No, well, the thing is, I do it without thinking about it. And it wasn't until my wife was like, why are there so many socks in your sound booth?
What? Why are you in the vents with your?
You know, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you, huh? And it's always just like one sock, which is like, I'll take off my left sock, and then it's just like, keep going. And I'll walk around. She's like, where's your other sock? And I'm like, somewhere.
Also, it's okay not to put out content every week. If you're a creator and you're making things and you take a couple of weeks off, who cares? You're doing it for you. You're doing it for the people around you. And if they don't like it, it's too early to tell you how I really feel about them. But it starts with an F.
So thank you guys all for coming to Maintaining Narrative TTRPGs. My co-panelists, if you would sign off by reintroducing yourselves.
Hey, I'm Devan Henderson. I'm one of the co-DMs of D4. We stream on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch, and you can find all the information at d4dndrpg.com.
My name is Travis McElroy. For this panel, primarily I do the Adventure Zone, which is an actual play podcast that I do with my brothers and my dad. We just released the first 2 episodes, Session 0 and Episode 1 of Dust Season 2, which is a supernatural western that I am running. You can check that out. Go to McElroy.family, and it's all there.
I'm Philip D. Keating from Botch Podcast. We are live every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/Botch Podcast, and also Tuesday at 6:30. For con, though, Saturday night, Grand Ballroom East, we're having Blood Feud. It's
Let's go.
D&D Family Feud.
Legally distinct from Family Feud. Cannot be injunctured.
Panel at 11:30 p.m. where Botch Podcast will take on the reigning champions of Adventure Inc. It is fully interactable with the crowd. If you want to get rowdy and get weird and play some games, come see us then. And then Botch is in the Grand Ballroom West at 10 p.m. Sunday night as we kick off Season 7.
I am Mike Crugnola from Adventure Incorporated podcast, a D&D 5th edition podcast where we try to play as close to the rules as we want. Follow us at Adventure Inc. Pod anywhere, and come to Adventure Incorporated live tonight at 10 o'clock next door in Galleria 6. It will be fun and weird. One of our players just had a baby, and so we're doing a weird story, and it'll be cool. So stop by.
And my name is Alex Smith. I am the DM of the Quid Pro Roll podcast, and thank you guys so much for coming.